Om Shanti, everyone. Welcome, morning, afternoon, and evening around the globe. And thank you for being with us today. This is number 5 in a series of spiritual conversations we have been having since the beginning of COVID, actually. And I think it was in recognition, thanks to Marcelo Bai, who initiated, that there are many things that are happening for us, an intensification of purification, we can say, at this time. And we wanted to create a space for conversations with some of our senior, wise, experienced Raj Yoga brothers and sisters, students, and that we recognize we have so many valuable resources in this family, and let's learn together from each other. So today is number 5. The previous 4, one on financial insecurity, one on emotional eruptions, one on belonging, and the last one was on our relationship with time. So today, as you know, it is trusting the divine intellect when facing obstacles. We all know that our divine intellect is precious to us, and it is what allows us to see and know how to respond accurately in any situation. With us to explore the topic today, we have 3 very experienced and wise yogi souls. One of them, Sister Luciana from Brazil, who I'm pretty sure everyone would know, 41 years with Baba, a sociologist by trade, and managing, directing, facilitating, leading all of the activities in Brazil, which is like being, I think, a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So welcome, Luciana, a very, very capable soul. Sister Kiran, who I've not seen for a very long time, and I'm looking forward to seeing. Hello, Kiran Ben, welcome. Is in Eugene, Oregon, I think, right now, sitting in the center there on the west coast of America. And Sister Kiran's been 40 years with Baba and was in Canada for a good period of time, which is how I know her well, has done much teacher training for all of the teachers in the BK world, and runs probably the central information hub for the BKs right now called One Link. So welcome, Sister Kiran. I think it's morning for you. And together with these 2 wonderful sisters, we have Brother Yogesh joining us from Turkey. Hello, Yogesh Bhai, nice to see you. And we never know the number of years because he's ever so discreet about that. But let's just say he's always been Brahmin early in childhood. Has come to Baba then, and as we know, managing the BK service activities in Turkey, and becoming our senior brother very quickly. Nice to see you, Yogesh. So welcome, all 3 of you. I think we've decided to make these conversations kind of short and sweet, and so we've only had 2 main questions. So we'll begin with a round, and we'll hear from each of you, since our topic is the divine intellect, just to share your own experiences. We'll get into how does the divine intellect work, and how do we protect it, enhance it, on our second round. But the first round, if we could just hear a couple of stories from each of you of your own experiences where this divine intellect has actually been very useful to you when facing obstacles. And we'll begin with Sister Luciana, and then Sister Kiran, and Brother Yogesh. So Luciana, welcome. I cannot hear you. Maybe others can.
Its micro is turned off.
Luciana, microphone.
Yes, sure. Hello,
Thank
Judy.
you.
Hello, Kiran. Hello, Yogesh. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am in Brother Ken's computer, so that's why it says Ken instead of Luciana. It's a wonderful topic, in fact. It's so deep and interesting. And how I see the divine intellect is connected mainly with 2 of our powers. One is the power of recognition, and the other one is the power to decide. And as you have requested for special situations, practical situations that we are facing in, especially at this time of the COVID-19, I would like to share two of my experiences. One of them is, it has to do with my whole spiritual journey. These 41 years in Gyan have been wonderful years, but at the same time with many, many challenges. I had many, many spiritual crises in my Brahmin life. Not crisis so much in terms of doubts in Gyan or doubts in Baba, but I did have many doubts in the organization, in the institution, and many doubts in myself if I was up to the standard that it was required from me. And so it was not an easy journey or a very smooth journey. I had many ups and downs. And in the last years, I've been much more stable and I feel much happier with my spiritual journey. But what has happened me with this divine intellect to keep going all this time, it was the understanding of knowledge, and especially one point of the knowledge that was crucial for me in this divine intellect, which is the understanding of the cycle. It was the understanding of the repetition of the 5,000 years and this eternity of time, and this understanding that any choice I would make now in the confluence age would be with me forever, made me to stick to this organization and to stick to this knowledge and to stick to this Brahmin life. So I think that one of the points that I want to make in terms of the divine intellect, for each one of us, it's different, it's individual experience. But for me, this understanding of the cycle was very much connected with the divine intellect that led me to take the right decision. And one second point, which was also very important for me, and I can give an example from yesterday and today, which is the power of this to decide. I think that the divine intellect is very much connected with the decisions that we make in our lives and the consequences of these decisions. And since yesterday, we have been coming with a situation in Brazil, which is to keep one of our main centers, which is a rented house. And since 6 months, no activity has been going on there. And it's an expensive house. So we have been thinking if it's to continue or to just let it go. Of this center. And I am towards the decision of keeping the center because it's one main city and it's a very good location. And if we leave this house, we don't know if we are going or when we are going to have another good location like it is this one. So I am towards this. So I think that a divine intellect, it's also something to do with to take decisions in terms of intuition. Knowledge is the background, but the intuition, for me, it says that we cannot give up this center. It's a little bit like a church, you know, like a church is a church. You don't just decide not to have that church anymore and just close it down. So I think also that the power, the divine intellect requires a lot of humility, because like into this position of deciding about this particular situation since yesterday and this morning about this center, I'm not taking the decision alone. I am conversing and having this conversation with the people of the place, with the main teachers of the place, and of course with Brother Ken, who has been my main companion in taking decisions in service in Brazil. So I think that The divine intellect is also very much connected with the power of recognition, the power to decide, with a humble intellect that can catch the intuition, but also can take advice. In golden age, we are not going to have advisors, but in confluence age, we do have to have advisors. So I think that that's it for now.
That's beautiful, Luciana. Thank you so much. Recognition, decide. I like the intuition as well as taking advice. And so the discern intellect can somehow tell the difference. You know, your own intuition and then knowing when to take advice, and they both go together somehow. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, I think that the discernment is very much connected with the recognition. When you have clarity, and that's why purity is important, but it's also important to have this understanding of the systems of Baba, what is important for Baba and in this spiritual life. So I think that a clarity of intellect, but also the understanding and the knowledge how things work, because it's not just the knowledge of the points of Gyan, but it's the knowledge of the whole world that Baba has created for us. This methodology, the whole importance that the ways Baba says many times to use his methods. So I think that this intuition is connected with also, you know, to tune into Baba's methods. And so sometimes these methods are different from my methods or from whatever Kali Yuga methods people use outside. But we have to have this intuition tuned to what are Baba's methods. And the discernment is very much connected with the power of recognition, with this clarity of intellect. And also I think that a lot of the feelings have to be pure feelings of what is the benefit for people and not your own interest, not any egoistic interest, but what is best in this situation. As if you could move yourself from the scenery, from the scene, and really think in terms what is the best for the people involved. I think that to take in consideration also, I think that this is also an aspect of humility, of not thinking about your ideas and your preferences, but to think in terms what is best for the people out there.
Thank you. Very nice. Thank you very much, Luciana. Kiran, Ben, would you offer your experience using a divine intellect to face obstacles?
I'm just muting.
Yes, we hear you.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Very nice to be with Luciana, Yogesh, you, and everyone else today. I had a little difficulty thinking about obstacles because I don't really feel I've had obstacles in my Brahmin life. And maybe I was thinking in terms of the obstacles that some of the original members had, you know, obstacles from society and obstacles from their families and things like that. I've never had any of that in Gyan. I have had tests and challenges. But in thinking about the divine intellect, I think one aspect of it is how it's the divine intellect that enables us to connect with Baba, and how often that creates wonderful situations, or we can use it sometimes in situations. So an early example for me when I was in Canada was some BKs had come from Seattle to visit. And when they left, we had packed a lunch for them and they had driven off, and I went back in the house and discovered that they'd left the lunch on the counter in the kitchen table. in the kitchen. And so I went to Baba's room and I just sat down in front of Baba and I said, Baba, before they get to the US border, they should realize that they've left their lunch behind and turn around and come back and get it. And 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. And that they had forgotten their lunch. To me, that was an early on example of using the divine intellect to connect with Baba and let Baba operate through the intellect. Not exactly an obstacle, but anyway. And I was thinking about the contrast. Well, let me take that up later. Another more recent example was when I had a total hip replacement of my right hip. And I was lucky to have Sister Roslyn, who is a retired nurse, with me. And we were in the pre-operating room. And it was time for the surgery. This was in 2017. And it was a day when Bap Dada was coming. And it was just at that time, early morning, when Bap Dada would have been meeting with everyone in India. And I think it was just maybe one of the very last times that Bap Dada actually came and spoke through Dadi Gozar. And you might remember he didn't speak for very long. It was like 15 minutes, and he just was talking about the family and how, you know, you won't just come to Madhaban to meet Bap Dada, you'll come for the family and for other reasons, right? And so I just had the thought, while we're just minutes before me going into surgery, to see if I could get tuned into Madhaban to hear the Murli. And the connection got established just as Baba started speaking. And as soon as Baba finished, they said, okay, into the operating room with you. And so to me, that was also the divine intellect allowing me to connect with Bap Dada just at that moment, to go into that operating theater with Baba's very powerful remembrance and presence. In terms of the COVID situation, I think it's more of being able to observe collectively how all of us who have been given this gift of a divine intellect by Baba, how we all have fared so generally so well and so accurately. Like everybody sort of ended up in the place where they were supposed to be during this lockdown and shutdown. And I made it back just like 2 days before they stopped all the international flights. But some people were shut down there in India, and they were saying, you know, this is so accurate for them. And other people, you know, who I've heard from, just, it's been an ideal situation in a way. And if you contrast that with where people generally are, people who don't have the divine intellect, they're having all sorts of different challenges and obstacles and frustrations. Whereas we children of Baba, because of having this intellect that understands the knowledge, understands we've been through this before, understands the drama is accurate, this is what is supposed to be happening now, all of those things, as Luciana said, we're just repeating what we did 5,000 years ago, and it's all okay. How we've been able to pass through this time so much more comfortably and easily than others. So those are some of the things that I would share about that. And one of the early things that made me recognize the difference between the divine intellect and the human intellect, I was remembering I was in Vancouver and there was a brother who was very new, and he remarked to me one day that he had just finished reading a book by Aldous Huxley. And Aldous Huxley is regarded as one of the top geniuses who's ever existed on the planet. I saw one quote about him. But he was a very amazing writer and thinker. And this brother had just finished reading his book, and he was telling me how it was amazing, but he could see how accurate Aldous Huxley was in so many of his ideas. But then at a certain point, he could just see where he went off track. And I went, wow, you know? I said to this brother, that's proof that how Baba has changed your intellect. If you can see how this genius goes off track in his thinking, what intellect do you have, right, that Baba has given you? So there's such a contrast in today's world between the intellect that we've been given by Baba and the intellect of everyone else that is so influenced by the stress, not only the stress and tensions of the world, but all the negative influence of the vices. We just only have to marvel at the fortune that we have to have been given this gift by God.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Kiran Ben. I have a question that arises from Luciana's speaking and yours, and I think I'm going to save them till after Yogesh has a chance to share some of his stories, because I think there'll be a question that arises there as well. So Yogesh, I'll invite you to tell a couple stories of your experience, please, with the Divine Intellect. Oh, no volume.
Maybe okay.
No, very faint, actually. Yeah, we have such a love affair now with technology, or shall we say we're learning to love and partner harmoniously with technology. Okay, let's try this one.
That better?
Yeah, much better, actually. Thank you.
Okay. So, Shanti, firstly, big thanks and congratulations to Marcelo and yourself for taking this initiative to really help us how to move forward. And when it comes to stories and experiences of the Divine Intellect, I was thinking what to share in terms of really real life experiences. And I sat in Baba's room and I asked him and I said, so what do you think? What should I share? And the thought which came to mind was the experience we had here a few years ago when there was a military coup which took place. And everything just changed overnight. And there was a huge amount of chaos in the country, as you can imagine. And I was watching with another brother the news broadcast, which was telling everyone that nobody can go out, you have to stay in. And so no one knew what was happening, how long it would last. And I was also receiving messages from Brahmins in different places saying, you need to get out now, find a way to leave. It's very unstable, it's uncertain. And by the morning, the situation had changed again, where the coup failed, but then something else started. The crackdown from the ruling authorities. So again, thousands of people were being arrested, and everyone was like a suspect. And I did have the thought that, what is the right thing for me to do here at this moment? And I knew that if I thought about it too much, then I would not be able to receive Baba's touchings. And the phrase which came to mind was that when Baba had once said, keep your intellect plain and I will give you the plan. And so I consciously paid attention to that. Let me not think too much. Let me not use my intellect to work out different options. Keep the intellect stable, remain free from fear and anxiety, and just allow myself to receive Baba's touching. And although we still had internet and telephone, but also the thought came to me that one day technology will not work. And since, these conversations are about preparing for the future, for me it was also a little rehearsal to check how clear is my intellect, how free am I also from the dust of my own nature. And so as a result of that, it seemed very clear to me that I just need to stay put, stay where I am, and just allow this situation to pass. And that's what happened, and I felt very clear about it. Although I got also advice from London, who I contacted, and Sister Genti was saying, if you feel you need to leave, then do so. But the feeling was very strong, as though Baba was saying, stay here. It's the right place to be. And so that was one experience for me, which was symbolic of how to move forward in the times of uncertainty which are yet to come. And just one more thing I remember. There was a time when there was an earthquake here, a big one, and very soon after that there was an earthquake also in Greece and in India. And around that time, Baba had sent a message through Dadi Gulzar, and he had said that if you remain yog yukt, then your feet will move towards safety. And I heard that and I thought, how amazing that, think of the stress, the worry, the tension, the fear that people in the world have when it comes to an earthquake. Should I be indoors? Should I be outdoors? Where should I go? What should I do? And they create a lot of anxiety for themselves. And for Brahmins, on the one hand, okay, we need to be physically prepared and be sensible. But greater than that was this thought. The main thing is to be yog-yukt, which means keep the intellect stable, keep it clear, honor the divine intellect, and trust that. And whether you have to stay where you are, or whether you have to go somewhere, my feet will move towards safety if I'm in that yog-yukt state. And so this was another indicator for me that the divine intellect is to be trusted and used, and ultimately it's the only protection we have is Baba's guidance and Baba's touchings through the divine intellect.
Thank you, Yogesh. Very helpful. In your case, really listening to you, the sense is trusting the feeling, because it didn't even sound like it was at the thought level for you. It was just at the feeling level. You felt the right thing to do was to stay. And maybe because there weren't a lot of thoughts, you had made the decision that you would keep your intellect plain. You wouldn't clutter your mind with the noise of thinking and planning and questioning. Is this something that you would attribute to years of practicing that? Or were there enough experiences over time that showed you that just trusting feeling was the only way to go, and that was in fact the divine intellect at work?
Yeah, my feeling was this, that it was a very powerful feeling, first of all, so there was no question of, is this right, is it wrong? I really did feel as though, Baba had placed that instruction in the intellect that just stay here. And I remember this famous story that we all know of Brahma Baba, when the money ran out and he didn't start thinking what to do, how will we eat? He didn't start using his own intellect. And so that story was also there in the mind, that this is what Baba did when he faced uncertainty and obstacles. Plus, I feel that our yogi life anyway is really all about looking after the divine intellect. So everything we do in terms of maryadas and timetable and study, I believe it's all designed for the purification of the intellect. And since we're living that, then yeah, I think we do develop trust in the intellect and trust in our relationship with Baba as the protector.
Mm-hmm. Kiran, Ben, as you were speaking, you started by saying there were no obstacles. There were tests and challenges, but no obstacles, which was already a lovely indicator of a divine intellect at work. You're not even perceiving things as obstacles. They're just tests and challenges along the way. And as you spoke, I got the feeling that maybe we just become so accustomed to having this divine intellect, you know, that the third eye has been opened, we have self-realization, we are connecting to God. And yet it's a journey over time, as you're saying, Yogesh, for that intellect to become more and more refined, or maybe for us to trust it. I'm not sure which. But I think my question to you, Kiran, is in that department of do we get so accustomed to it working that we don't even notice it's there? So your difficulty finding big specific examples because, well, you're just living with such a sense of clarity that confusion doesn't really even come. And so maybe we just get accustomed to this divine intellect working. Can you speak to that a bit, just in terms of understanding how it works?
Sure. I think for me, the fact that I couldn't come up with obstacles is more to do with the fact that I just really have a real hard time remembering the past. And it just doesn't, I'm in the present most of the time, and I rarely think about anything in the past, and especially any difficult things. It's like, you know, why go there? So there's that aspect, but I think if you're actually someone who is listening to Murli every day and applying what you're learning in your Brahmin life, that you don't really take the divine intellect for granted. I think you see the contrast constantly between the results in your life and those of people who don't have a divine intellect. And so for me, I can't see myself taking it so much for granted. It's more that I want to make it sharper, more refined. I want to be able to have a clearer, more constant connection with Baba. And to me, the obstacles really come in the intellect. It's when the old sanskaras arise and the old tendencies to react or think in terms of the ways you used to think. Those are really the obstacles that one confronts in one's Brahmin's life. And even today, in today's Murli Baba talking about the senses, the eyes deceiving you, and the three vices of lust, anger, and greed, that if you don't keep the honesty with Baba, if you don't write your chart, if you don't, I don't write a literal chart, but I do try to keep myself very clean and clear with Baba. If you don't do that, then your divine intellect gets obstructed, and then the clarity goes and the connection goes, and even the knowledge, you forget that, oh, this is just another scene in the drama, it's accurate, and these souls are just playing their parts. You forget all of that. So the faith that Baba says that makes you victorious, the faith in the intellect, is for me faith in my own ability or tenacity or determination or whatever it is, the faith to always keep making effort for that connection and for the clarity and from checking to make sure that it's accurate. And what resolves those obstacles that come up from the sanskars and from situations.
Can you share, and I will ask you, Luciana, also to share, what is it that we do to strengthen divine intellect. So I'm hearing you say, Kiran, Ben, it's just the ongoing practice of following Srimad, following Baba's suggestions and directions on a daily basis, and cleaning your own cleaning on a daily basis is one of the practices. Maybe I'll ask Luciana and then back around to Kiran and Yogesh for another answer to that. Luciana, what you do to strengthen, and I'm actually coming back to you talked a lot about intuition, which was so lovely. And how do you know the difference between intuition and, say, your own opinion? Yogesh spoke about it just being a feeling that was so strong, but we sometimes have strong feelings that are opinions. But there's a difference. How do you know the difference? And what is it that you do to keep your connection, to protect and strengthen the divine intellect?
I think that the first aspect of the intuition, it means that your line of the intellect is very clear with Baba. Baba is like this clear reservoir of knowledge, of understanding, of wisdom, and your line is completely clear, so you are grasping from this reservoir of wisdom. And so it's clearly that it's not you, you know, it's not coming from your personal opinion, which has many layers and many veils in between. But it's something that, like Yogesh Bhai was saying, that came in the sense of a feeling. It comes as an idea that it's very clear, it's not your opinion. And I think that we can check that when you speak to others and everyone accepts. Also, another way of putting it is that you start to work in that direction from the intuition that you got, from the intuition that you had, and everything works successfully. I think that success is one indication that it was an intuition and not just a personal opinion. I think that the acceptance of everyone in terms of your suggestion is another indication that it's something that came from Baba, because Baba has much more capacity to please everyone than you have this capacity. So when it's his intuition or something that it came to you as an intuition from the divine intellect, so it has the same capacity of pleasing everyone. I think that this is one aspect. And in terms of the strengthening the intellect, I think that just the basic 4 subjects are the ones that are going to create this power. I think that churning knowledge is very much one of the methods to understand the whole environment that Baba is creating to us, the world that Baba is creating to us. For me, knowledge is very important. I came to understand Baba. I came to understand how he operates through the knowledge. But it's not just a knowledge of listening to the Murli, but it's processing it, you know, it's just like reflecting on the aspects and trying to understand from which perspective Baba is saying that in the Murli. Like yesterday in the Murli of Sunday, Baba mentioned about every single soul comes with this gift of one quality, one speciality. Baba used this word speciality. At least it was the translation. So Baba many times also says that everyone, as soon as we are born, when we recognize Baba, it's just like we got this third eye of knowledge. We got this divine intellect. But to keep strengthening it, I think that very important is to keep it clean. And keep it clean, it means to have cleanliness with the connection with Baba, is to have cleanliness with the connection with our seniors, is the cleanliness, to be transparent, to be sincere, sincere in the sense of transparent, you know, like honest. Honesty, I think that it's a big thing in keeping the clarity of your intellect and in strengthening it. So I think that we have to bring it to reality. It's not just a divine intellect that we got sometime when we were born and we recognized Baba, but this inheritance, we have to be investing in it so that it can multiply. And I think that one of the methods also that it's very important to create this power in the intellect is to enhance our power of concentration. And I see that sometimes Brahmins are a little bit, you know, we say to the world outside, well, when you start to meditate and to practice Raj Yoga, you improve your concentration, so you don't have to repeat whatever you are typing or whatever you are doing, because, you know, like you are more focused in whatever you are doing. And sometimes I don't see this with Brahmins. No, we say that the power of concentration helps us in our relationships, because then you are completely present, you are completely there when you are talking to someone or you are giving time to your children. So you are completely in that present mode. But I don't see that. Sometimes you're talking to some Brahmins and they are looking here and there or thinking another thing. So I think that we have to really practice what we are saying to people, that it's so great and so useful in the practice of Raj Yoga. And I think that this is what creates power in our intellect, a part of knowledge, a part of yoga, which is so important.
Lovely. Thank you, Luciana. So concentration is both a practice, something we have to actually make effort for, but at the same time, it is evidence that the divine intellect is connected, because then we aren't having a lot of interruptions in our intellect. The way Kiran was saying, the challenge is when the intellect, it comes in the intellect, the challenges of old sanskars. Kiran, would you add something to the practices that strengthen the divine intellect?
I think it's important to really, time to time, frequently ask yourself, what are you doing here? Where's your intellect going? Where's your interest? Because if you're really interested in Brahman life and in Gyan, then you're always going to be interested. I mean, right now there's so much available. It's almost super saturation of things. There's so many people online giving so many great classes and so many different things. But even if you just take one thing out of that, or your Aruna has recently sent around this 7-day program for Amrit Vela, that I thought, oh, that's kind of a nice thing. I think I could manage actually to do this one. So you're kind of looking for things that will support your path. That's one thing, and it's going to be different for everyone else, but obviously following the basic Srimats of Amrit Vela, Murli every day, and offering Bhog, and all those things are critical to the practice. But finding whatever means you can to remember that you're a soul, to see others as a soul, and to remember Baba. It needs constant inventiveness and creativity, and a enthusiasm of your original aim, why you're here, what are you doing here, and where is your interest going.
Very nice, thank you. Yogesh, what are your practices right now?
Yeah, much the same as Luciana and Kiran. My feeling is this, that to keep the intellect absorbed or immersed in elevated thoughts, and what I find helps with that is, one is going deep into the Avyak Murlis. Second is, of course, remembrance of Baba and deepening the experience of the relationship with Baba. And the third area could be service and being creative in new ways of service. But especially I would touch upon and recommend a deep personal research of the Avyakt Murlis. I find it remarkable that in the world, for example, we have these modern day gurus who are very popular, both from the East and the West. And they have great things to say. But for me, Bap Dada's Avyakt Murlis are just mind-blowing. And we've had almost 50 years of that, such rich material. So I find that if I take one Avyakt Murli and I just stay with it for 3 days, 4 days, or even a week, processing, reading, churning, absorbing, this helps me in terms of the divine intellect, for more stability, and also to be able to access, Baba's wisdom. Not just what you read in the Murli, but also, the touching and understanding Baba's own personality. And so I think immersion in elevated thoughts, this is what makes the divine intellect strong and stable. And then, the things which we may have found difficult before seem to be more easy.
Like?
Practice.
Sorry?
For example, one may have found it difficult to deal with a certain individual, a certain set of sanskars which may be opposite to mine. But then as the consciousness becomes higher, you really see it as nothing. And just a few days ago, one sister was sharing with me that before COVID and now, my perspective has changed so much. The things that I used to think were major issues, I really see them as petty now, petty and not even worth a second thought. And I think for many of us, I think we have grown in these last few months. And so my own feeling also is that, especially now with not just COVID, but also Adi Janki's change of role, is calling us to bring ourselves up to the next stage of our own spiritual maturity. And the time of the angels is now, that's my feeling. And therefore, when I feel that my role as angel is required, then issues become smaller and smaller, and in fact meaningless. And I find that the study of Baba's Avyak Murlis is what helps me to go higher and higher in my own consciousness.
Thank you. We did not even begin by defining the divine intellect, which is interesting, and usually it starts that way. I think perhaps before we end, because we have about 5 minutes before we have a short meditation together, I've been sort of fielding the chat box questions as they've come up. But maybe we could hear from each of you. So what is the divine intellect? If you were just to share in essence a working definition, and I'll just give you a couple seconds to think about it. Because everything that you've said here, I think all of us listening, if we stopped and thought about it, we would recognize our own moments where, some clarity came that wasn't me, that wasn't my own thinking, or all of the stories you've shared. I bet those of us listening would also have stories like that. So it's there and it's working. And everything you've said about how to strengthen it is very much within our hands. It's within our effort-making capacity to be reading Avyak Murlis, to be following Sri Bhat, to be just doing everything Baba's asking us to do, knowing that what that does is it keeps me in line. it keeps me, you know, tracking Baba's energy. So perhaps if we could just end with, unless there's any comments that each of you would have about anything that anyone else has said, maybe I'll just ask for that first before we close it. Any other comment from any of you, the three of you, on anything said by anyone else that would highlight or enhance our understanding?
I can just say something. When Kiran started her sharing, saying that she doesn't remember any obstacle in her life, I was just thinking to myself, is this a question that I don't understand English properly? Or, you know, the definition of obstacle in English, because like in Portuguese, there is not even any difference between obstacle and test. It would be just the same thing. You see? So I was just thinking, is this something to do with the English? Because I think that, you know, this nuance in terms of the language also, especially because English is not my first language, I feel that I miss sometimes in expressing myself that subtle aspects because of the language. So I wanted to remark this. Maybe obstacle is just bigger than test. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe in English, yeah. But you're very good at the subtle, Luciana. Very good. No worries there.
And I can, as I'm speaking, I can share how do I see it, how can I define the divine intellect. I think that the divine intellect is an intellect that works, functions according to the rules of confluence age. So what makes us align, present in the confluence age is our divine intellect. If we move to Kali Yuga, if we move to sanskars, if we move to whatever, removes us from being aligned to be present in confluence age, is not the divine intellect anymore. And I think that this speciality of the divine intellect aligned with the confluence age, it's what it's helping us to create our Sato Pradhana stage. It means that it's bringing us to that hum so hum, to who I was, I will again be that, to that Sato Pradhana stage of my complete purity, my complete holiness, my complete sacred stage. I think that that's how I would define the divine intellect.
Wonderful. Thank you, Luciana. Kiran, Ben, for you, a summary statement. What is the divine intellect anyways?
Sorry. I don't know about the difference between obstacles and tests. For me, obstacles are like a barrier, whereas a test is not so much of a barrier, it's just a test. I don't know the difference. Anyway, for me, I guess the divine intellect has to do with Baba's knowledge about the self as a soul and immortal, and about who God is, which is so different from the beliefs I used to have, and the knowledge of the drama, and even the knowledge of things like the subtle region. To me, all of that body of knowledge that Baba has given us, and the fact that I begin to understand it, is to me what defines the divine intellect. A non-divine intellect won't get it, right? And the thing is that the amazing thing is that your own divine intellect deepens and changes over time. I mean, we all have the experience of how you're listening to the same Murli that you heard many years ago, but it has a whole different meaning and depth and understanding. So it means your intellect has changed, it's deepened, it's become more golden, and you're able to grasp things on a subtler, deeper, wiser level than before. So to me, the divine intellect is a malleable thing. It's Baba's knowledge that has one of the characteristics of it. It has given us a whole completely different perspective on reality than what we had before. Both on who I am. I'm not what I used to think of myself as. The world is not the way it used to appear to me. Everything has changed, and that to me is the function of the divine intellect, is a change of perspective and a change of understanding regarding everything, really.
Thank you. Very nice. And Yogesh, just before we leave you with the final word and maybe just a couple of moments of seeing us out with a little commentary, I'll just make a comment. There's a chat box offering, which is very nice, about how, you know, we use our intellects in work all the time, and so much has to be in the intellect during work, but that it's actually the purity of the intellect that can keep it clean, although it's busy, which is a very nice perspective to offer. So thank you from the chat box. And maybe any comment on that, Yogesh, and your definition, working definition.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much more I can add. I think Kiran Ben put it beautifully. But, maybe I could just say that the intellect is the eye of the soul. And so when I have a divine intellect, which, yes, is the birthday gift from Baba, then it gives me access to the alokik world. It enables me to see eternity. It enables me to live on that consciousness level of being unlimited, seeing the whole thing as a drama, being aware of the law of karma at every moment, and also being aware of Baba's presence. So for me, it's like a window which opens and gives me access to another dimension. And therefore, yeah, the perspective is very different, where you're living from another viewpoint, and life takes on a very different meaning when I am rooted in that and fixed in that viewpoint.
Thank you. Beautiful summary, all three of you. We thought we would end at an hour, so we'll save a couple of minutes for Yogesh to do a few words of commentary. But thank you to each of you, Luciana Ben, Kiran Ben, and Yogesh Bhai, for being here with us. I think it's rich exploration. The chat boxes, notes that I've been getting are people are taking a lot of benefit from the conversation. So I really appreciate you preparing and bringing yourselves, just being who you are and bringing that to this conversation. It's very helpful. Thank you so much. So Yogesh, if you would just close us off with a couple of moments.
Okay. So as always, firstly, I just come to my eternal throne, my eternal seat of self-respect. And I turn my thoughts towards Baba, towards the source, the ocean of light, the ocean of peace. Baba, the one who accepts me as I am. Baba, the one who knows my entire story. Baba, the one who does not see my weakness. Baba, the one who knows me better than I know myself. I choose to keep myself next to Baba, and I absorb Baba's power, Baba's love, Baba's light. I choose to stay in this divine partnership. I choose to live in this union such that I become a reflection of Baba. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you translators. Thank you Marcelo Bai and the IT team. Of course, thank you